They say the Earth remembers everything, every storm that tore its surface, every creature that walked upon it, every whisper that echoed through its molten heart. But what if beneath the layers of time, under the continents and seas, there lies a story older than humanity itself, one we were never meant to find? Long before Homo sapiens drew their first breath, forces of unimaginable intelligence may have shaped the planet. Not gods, not myths, but builders, engineers of stone and element, whose traces are scattered in the fractures of our world. Monoliths older than language, fossils that shouldn't exist, patterns too precise to be chance. This is not the story of mankind's creation. It is the story of what might have come before. A forgotten era where consciousness took a different form, where reason might have worn scales or light, or something we cannot yet name. If Earth's first architects were not human, then what blueprint did they leave behind? And why did they vanish? Or perhaps, why were they buried? Welcome to Secrets Earth. If these questions awaken something in you, a quiet curiosity that stirs beneath the noise, like subscribe and tell us where in the world or in time you're listening from tonight. The Earth was never silent. Even in its infancy, when the surface boiled with magma and the air was thick with carbon and lightning, the planet sang, in frequencies too deep for ears, too slow for time. Geologists call it seismic resonance, the low hum of a living world. But if one listens long enough, through the vibrations of fault lines and the steady rhythm of the tides, one might sense a different kind of order, not chaos, but construction. 4 billion years ago, the planet's crust hardened like the skin of a vast organism. Continents began to drift, colliding and breaking apart in a slow tectonic waltz. To modern science, this was a random choreography guided by heat and pressure. Yet some researchers, geophysicists and paleobiologists working at the intersection of chaos theory and planetary evolution, have noticed something curious. Beneath the randomness, there are ratios, alignments, and repeating geometries that appear across vastly different scales. The spacing of mountain ranges mirrors the pattern of neural networks. The structure of river deltas mimics the branching of lungs. Nature, it seems, was building with intent, but intent requires an architect. And this is where the story grows strange. In 2021, deep within the Pilbara Craton of Western Australia, one of the oldest and most stable geological formations on Earth, a group of geobiologists discovered layered structures embedded in ancient stromatolite fossils. Stromatolites, built by microbial mats billions of years ago, were Earth's first known builders. They shaped environments, produced oxygen, and laid the biochemical foundation for all later life. Yet within these fossils were hexagonal patterns, too precise to be bacterial, too consistent to be random. When scanned under electron microscopes, they revealed repeating sequences of mineral alignment that followed a mathematical constant known as the golden ratio. It was as if the first architects of Earth, these microscopic colonies, were not just living but designing. Of course, mainstream science dismissed the discovery as coincidence. Self-organizing systems often produce patterns that mimic intelligence. Snowflakes form with symmetry, crystals grow with precision, and coastlines evolve in fractal elegance, none of which require intent. But the question remains, if life and matter naturally converge toward structure and proportion, what stops us from calling that structure a kind of intelligence? The French philosopher Henri Bergson once suggested that evolution was guided by an elan vital, a vital impulse, not mechanical, but creative. Modern evolutionary biology rejects such metaphysical ideas, yet the data whisper otherwise. When stromatolites built their reef-like towers, they were not adapting to their surroundings. They were reshaping them, changing the composition of the oceans, altering the atmosphere, even cooling the planet. They didn't merely survive, they terraformed. And so, the first builders of Earth may not have had bones or tools. They may have been colonies of light-sensitive cells, pulsing in rhythm with the tides, laying down minerals like bricks in an invisible cathedral. Some scientists call this biogenic construction. Others see in it the first act of planetary engineering, not by hands but by living networks. Still, there are anomalies that resist such comfort. In Greenland's Isua Greenstone Belt, a 3.8 billion-year-old formation predating known life, researchers found layered deposits of iron and silica arranged in intersecting grids. The patterns are not consistent with sedimentary layering or volcanic activity. They form crosshatches, angles near 90 degrees, and parallel strata that suggest deliberate spacing. The measurements repeat every 12.9 millimeters, the same ratio observed in certain Precambrian fossil mats, and, astonishingly, in the internal lattice of some crystalline minerals used in modern nanotechnology. Coincidence again, perhaps, or evidence that Earth's earlier structures were not entirely organic. If the builders existed, they might not have been creatures in the biological sense. They could have been emergent systems, hybrids of chemistry and magnetism, forming and dissolving in cycles we can barely comprehend. Matter learning to think through pattern long before thought was bound to flesh. This is not mythology. It is one interpretation of data, a whisper from the planet's memory buried in rock and ratio. And yet, across cultures, the oldest myths echo the same notion, that creation began not with chaos, but with a design. The Sumerians spoke of beings who measured the world before the flood. The Egyptians said that the earth was written in the language of stone. Indigenous Australian stories describe ancestral spirits who sang the land into being, where every rock, every dune followed a sacred geometry of sound. Could these be poetic memories of something real, not gods, but intelligences of the deep past, remembered through myth as the first makers? If so, perhaps we have misunderstood what intelligence looks like. Maybe it does not always speak or think. Maybe it builds. Tonight, as seismographs record the pulse of the planet and satellites map its invisible grid lines, we begin to see the Earth not as a passive sphere but as an archive, one that may still be humming with the remnants of its original architects. And if those architects were not human, what else might they have left behind? To look for what the first builders left behind, one must not search the surface, but listen to the deep. Beneath the continents lies a record, not of civilizations as we know them, but of rhythms, pulses, and alignments written in mineral and time. The Earth's crust is a palimpsest, layer over layer of construction and destruction, a canvas scraped clean and painted anew across eons, and hidden in this shifting archive are scars that do not fit the logic of nature's blind hand. In 2018, a joint geological expedition in South Africa's Barberton Greenstone Belt, a formation older than 3.4 billion years, detected magnetic anomalies deep below the bedrock. They were not large enough to be tectonic in nature, nor metallic enough to suggest meteorite fragments. When imaging software reconstructed their patterns, the shapes that emerged were geometric, concentric rings and radial spokes, like the skeleton of an immense wheel pressed into stone. At first, the discovery was dismissed as a software artifact, a glitch in data rendering. But after repeated cross-checks using gravitational mapping and acoustic tomography, the pattern remained. The structure was real, embedded in the substrata itself, a vast circle nearly 30 kilometers across, tilted at an angle that aligned precisely with the ancient equator, long before continental drift reshaped the planet's surface. Some called it an extinct volcano. Others proposed a natural convection pattern frozen in rock. Yet the symmetry was unsettlingly deliberate, as if designed to channel force, to organize energy. The formation's mineral composition revealed alternating bands of quartz and magnetite, substances that, when exposed to thermal gradients, can generate weak electrical currents. Was it possible that these were remnants of a planetary circuit, an ancient energy lattice that once pulsed across the Earth's mantle? It sounds impossible. But then again, so did the idea of microbes shaping continents. A similar enigma lies half a world away, beneath the frozen silence of Antarctica. Radar imaging from beneath the ice shelf near Lake Vostok has revealed polygonal networks etched into the bedrock, tens of meters wide, arranged in hexagonal tessellations. They resemble crystallization patterns yet are composed of granite, not ice or salt. Some physicists have speculated that these formations could result from a long-lost process known as thermochemical convection, where mineral structures self-organize as heat escapes through rock. But others see something older, something purposeful, the geometric residue of construction, a foundation stone for an age when the Earth itself may have been engineered. If such a thing were true, if the planet's earliest architecture was planetary in scale, then who or what was the builder? To answer that, we must step even deeper into time, to an epoch before multicellular life, when the planet's surface was a molten plain and the atmosphere glowed with ammonia and methane. In those chemical seas, strange structures began to form, not alive in the biological sense, but capable of replication and response. They were known as autocatalytic systems, networks of molecules that, through feedback loops, could sustain and modify themselves. They built microscopic compartments, trapped energy, and even evolved complexity. These systems were not life as we know it, yet they exhibited something eerily similar to purpose. Imagine an ocean of such entities, shimmering with self-organizing lattices of mineral and membrane, feeding off lightning and heat. Over millions of years, these proto-architects might have learned to stabilize their environment, creating a network of conductive patterns in the crust, a planetary nervous system built from chemistry alone. And then, as biology took hold, their legacy continued invisibly, buried beneath new layers of life. Some contemporary biophysicists have begun to describe Earth as a self-regulating organism, a concept known as the Gaia hypothesis. It proposes that life and environment co-evolve to maintain balance, as if the planet itself were alive. But what if Gaia was not the product of life? What if life was the product of Gaia? What if the blueprint for stability, for building, for adaptation existed before life began? In certain deep-sea vents today, where temperatures exceed 400 degrees Celsius and sunlight never reaches, scientists have found mineral chimneys forming spontaneously. Spiraling towers of iron sulfide and silica that host the first steps of metabolism, these vents generate electrical gradients, functioning like primitive batteries. Within their hollow cores, molecules gather, replicate, and evolve. The boundary between geology and biology dissolves. When viewed under high-resolution imaging, the internal patterns of these vent structures bear a haunting resemblance to modern data circuits, pathways for charge and flow, pulsing with chemical information. To a human eye, they appear as ruins of an invisible machine, one still running after billions of years. Could it be that the first builders were not creatures at all, but the planet's own chemistry, aware, reactive, and endlessly creative? The thought bends the limits of definition. Intelligence, as we describe it, is a product of neurons and intention. But if the Earth's deep systems once assembled networks capable of processing energy and information, if they learned, even without thought, then consciousness itself may be older than biology. Perhaps the first architects of Earth were patterns, not beings. Patterns that built the conditions for life, then stepped aside, retreating into silence as evolution continued their work in flesh and bone. Across the epochs, from the shimmering oceans of the Archean Aeon to the towering forests of the Carboniferous, echoes of that first design persist. The ratios of branching trees, the flow of rivers, the spiral of shells, all repeat the same geometries that once shaped minerals and magma. The blueprint never died, it merely changed materials. And as we dig deeper, uncovering grids beneath mountains, circular scars beneath ice, and frequencies that hum through the Earth's magnetic field, the question grows impossible to ignore. If the planet once built itself, if its first engineers were the very elements of its own body, then perhaps we are not the first intelligence to rise here. We may simply be its latest experiment, another structure in the long architecture of time. But then another question follows, quiet as breath beneath the soil. If the builders never truly vanished, where are they now? There are places on Earth where time folds in on itself, where stone and silence seem to conspire to remind us of something ancient, something almost deliberate. In those places the ground hums faintly, like a memory still vibrating beneath the crust. Geophysicists call it microseismic noise, the constant whisper of the planet's movements. Yet when the data from these vibrations are mapped across continents, certain frequencies align into vast harmonic fields, resonances that repeat with uncanny precision. One of the most intriguing lies beneath the Sahara. In 2022, a team from the University of Bologna used satellite gravimetry to analyze anomalies under the desert's central plateau. What they found wasn't a buried city or a meteorite crater, but a massive subsurface formation nearly 800 kilometers wide, perfectly circular, its density distributed in logarithmic spirals. The press called it the Earth's fingerprint, But some researchers went further. They proposed it might be a fossilized structure of planetary resonance, a record of the sound waves that once pulsed through the mantle, captured and solidified over time. If that's true, then what were those frequencies? What force could carve a geometric echo into the planet's interior? The answer may lie not in stone, but in vibration itself. For every structure on Earth, from coral reefs to galaxies, there is a hidden language of resonance, a physics of formation. This field, known as cymatics, studies how sound frequencies shape matter. When fine particles or fluids are exposed to vibration, they gather into repeating geometrical patterns, circles, triangles, fractals, and hexagons. It is a visible architecture of sound, a music made physical. What happens then, when the Earth itself vibrates? Billions of years ago, as the young planet cooled and tides surged under the pool of a newborn moon, it is likely that the crust vibrated with immense power. Ocean waves, magma flows, and planetary rotation created vast harmonic standing waves. Where those vibrations converged, minerals accumulated and landmasses thickened. The same principle that forms sand dunes under rhythmic wind. The continents themselves might be the frozen residue of planetary music. In this view, the first builders were not organisms or minds, but the physics of harmony, the laws that organize chaos into symmetry. Sound became structure, vibration became stone, and yet, even within that physical process, something uncanny persists. In recent years, seismologists have detected low-frequency tones, Earth hums, resonating constantly between the crust and atmosphere. These are not caused by earthquakes, wind, or ocean waves. They are continuous planetary-scale oscillations, pulsing in intervals that match, inexplicably, certain biological rhythms, heartbeats, brain waves, and circadian cycles. Coincidence, perhaps, or a lingering connection between life and the song that first built its home. In remote caves in South America, researchers studying petroglyphs discovered something equally haunting. When sound waves of specific frequencies were played inside the caverns, the rock walls vibrated along carved patterns, as though the ancient engravers had tuned their artwork to the resonance of the stone itself. The motifs, spirals, radiating circles and tessellations mirrored the very shapes produced in somatic experiments. Thousands of years apart, the same geometry repeated, from the song of the planet to the tools of the human hand. Were those ancient artists hearing the planet's frequency, or remembering it? The connection between vibration and creation is older than science. Every culture, from the Vedas of India to the Dogon myths of Mali, speaks of sound as the origin of form. In the beginning was the Word, says the Gospel of John. In the Rig Veda, the universe was born from Nada Brahma, the cosmic sound. Across continents, creation is not sculpted but sung. Perhaps these myths remember something real, the time when the planet itself sang matter into order, and life, the inheritor of that resonance, learned to echo it. Modern astrophysics has revealed that planets too have voices. When spacecraft record magnetic vibrations from Jupiter or Saturn, the data, when converted into sound, produces eerie, almost melodic tones. The Earth sings as well, a deep thrumming B-flat that resonates through the magnetic field. These planetary songs, shaped by solar wind and internal motion, are not random. They follow harmonic ratios, the same mathematics that govern music and structure alike. If the builders were born of a resonance, their tools would not have been stone or metal, but frequency and vibration, and their architecture would not rise above the surface, but within it, fields of energy shaping mineral, crystal, and fluid, guiding the birth of continents, seas, and ecosystems. Imagine it, a planet tuned like an instrument, each layer vibrating in sympathetic response to another, forming patterns of energy that give rise to form and life. To us, it would appear as coincidence, the curve of a shell, the spiral of a galaxy, the lattice of a snowflake. But beneath the aesthetics lies a code, a memory of construction through sound. In 2015, geochemists studying quartz resonators found that when struck by specific frequencies, quartz not only vibrated but generated electrical potentials strong enough to influence surrounding minerals. Over geological timescales, such resonance could guide crystallization, magnetism, even tectonic motion. The Earth's crust may not simply react to internal forces, it may respond to them in patterns resembling intention. What we call nature could, at its deepest level, be the work of an intelligence that is not conscious as we define it, an intelligence expressed through pattern, frequency, and law. If so, then every rock, every tide, every living cell is part of the same architecture, a symphony continuing from the first vibration that shaped the crust. But then a question emerges from the silence. If the Earth once built itself through harmony, what happens when that harmony is broken? The frequencies we generate now, from drilling, mining, deforestation, the endless hum of machines, have begun to alter the planet's own song. Seismologists have recorded a measurable rise in anthropogenic vibration, a static that clouds the natural resonance of the crust. The builders of today are drowning out the music of the first architects, and yet somewhere beneath the interference, the old frequency still hums, faint and patient, like a memory of the time when sound itself was stone. If we could hear it again, not through machines but through understanding, perhaps we might learn how to build as they once did, not by force, but by harmony. It begins with stone, because stone remembers. Every fracture, every ripple frozen in sediment carries the memory of an energy that once passed through it. To those who study geomorphology, these are natural scars, the effects of erosion, stress, and gravity. But to others, those who listen not only measure, the stones seem to speak. They whisper of hands, not human, shaping them before time had a name. In the deserts of Namibia, at a place called Tweefelfontein, the sandstone cliffs shimmer with ancient carvings of circles, spirals, and concentric rings. Archaeologists date them to several thousand years ago, yet the rock itself is hundreds of millions of years older, and within its grain are markings that no human tool carved. Under ultraviolet light, geometric lattices appear beneath the surface, running deep into the bedrock, as though etched by heat or radiation long before the first toolmaker existed. The lattice repeats at scales from microns to meters, aligned with magnetic north, as if the stone itself had once been crystallized in resonance with a planetary field. At first, researchers suspected natural mineral veining, quartz forming in fractures. But the geometry was too consistent, too deliberate, following harmonic ratios found nowhere else in nature. When subjected to acoustic testing, those same rocks emitted tones that matched Earth's known standing frequencies, as if tuned like an instrument. The stones sang back to the planet that formed them, and perhaps that was the builder's signature, not a monument of shape, but of sound. Across the globe, from the basalt columns of the Giant's Causeway to the tessellated pavements of Tasmania, the same hexagonal precision repeats. Official geology explains it through cooling magma. As lava solidifies, it contracts and cracks into geometric columns, but even this explanation admits a deeper truth, that nature organizes itself through invisible rules of stress and symmetry. Every fracture line follows the path of least resistance, just as veins form in leaves and rivers carve their deltas. Energy seeks equilibrium through pattern. The universe builds itself toward beauty. If that is the law by which stone and life both evolve, then perhaps the first builders were not separate from the planet at all. They were the planet, its deep forces finding form, experimenting with geometry the way an artist experiments with light. Yet among these patterns, there are anomalies that strain belief. In 2007, near the coast of Okinawa, divers discovered the Yonaguni Monument, a series of vast stone terraces descending into the sea. Sharp edges, 90-degree corners, staircase-like layers carved into sandstone. Some insist it is a natural formation, sculpted by millennia of tides. Others argue it is a ruin, the remnant of a civilization lost to the last ice age. But there is a third possibility, that it is neither natural nor human, but something in between. When sonar scans of the submerged structure were analysed, researchers found harmonic spacing between the terraces, precise intervals repeating every 13.4 meters, identical to frequency ratios used in harmonic resonance. The pattern suggested that the entire formation might have acted as a resonator, amplifying the vibrations of ocean currents and tidal energy. Not a temple, not a city, but an instrument. If the first builders were beings of resonance, then their architecture might still stand. not as walls or towers, but as places where the planet itself was tuned, each formation a node in a planetary symphony, orchestrating the movement of tides, magnetism and atmosphere. There are other whispers of this. Deep under the Andes near Lake Titicaca, explorers have found carved door-like portals in solid rock, the most famous called Puerta de Hayumarca. The doorway leads nowhere. Its frame is perfect, polished, and fused into the mountain as though melted. Local legends say it was a gate of the gods, a passage between worlds activated by sound. When tested, the stone surrounding the doorway resonated at 111 Hz, the same frequency used in ancient chants known to induce altered states of consciousness. Coincidence or inheritance? What if these places are the last harmonic stations of the first builders? Points where the energy of the earth once crossed, where resonance opened the flow between layers of matter and mind. Perhaps they built not to travel, but to communicate, to speak through vibration with the living planet itself. Modern physicists now study a concept called quantum acoustics, the way sound can alter quantum states in matter. At microscopic scales, vibration can change the spin of electrons, the conductivity of materials, even the shape of atomic lattices. It is possible that, in the distant past, an intelligence, not biological but harmonic, used these principles long before life emerged, an architecture of resonance, not civilization. And if that were so, the evidence would not look like cities or tools. It would look like geometry repeating across epochs, spiral shells, stone columns, hexagonal cracks, frozen waves of basalt. Nature as the preserved language of construction. Perhaps that language never ended. Our own cities, grids, towers and domes, unconsciously repeat the same harmonic ratios that first shaped the crust. Human architecture echoes cosmic architecture, as if the blueprint was already encoded in the stone beneath our feet. The philosopher Pythagoras believed that numbers were divine, that the universe itself was music, and we, its fleeting notes. 2.5 millennia later, science has proven him strangely right. Frequency governs the formation of galaxies, atoms and cells alike. What we call physics is a symphony written across matter. If the first builders existed, they may not have vanished. They may have simply become invisible, their work now indistinguishable from the laws of nature. The wind, the magnet, the tide, all instruments still playing the song they began. And so, when we speak of origin, we may be speaking not of species or time, but of pattern. For what endures through extinction and upheaval is not life itself, but the design beneath it. As dusk falls over the desert, the wind hums through the stone arches, and somewhere deep within the earth, that ancient vibration stirs again. The frequencies shift, almost imperceptibly, like a chord being retuned. Something perhaps is still listening. At the edge of Greenland's glaciers, where ice grinds over stone with the patience of 1 billion years, geologists have uncovered something that should not exist. Patterns of heat beneath the frozen crust, forming spirals instead of fractures. Thermal imaging revealed a network of circular heat signatures hundreds of meters across, each centered around mineral formations rich in magnetite and quartz. These spirals, etched deep beneath the permafrost, pulse faintly with electromagnetic activity, like the ghost of a machine that never truly shut down. At first, scientists thought they were volcanic anomalies, remnants of ancient magma flows, but there was no volcanic core, no plume of heat rising from below. The temperature gradients were too clean, too evenly distributed. When mapped in 3 dimensions, the pattern resembled a mandala, radiating loops of heat connected by filamentary lines. It looked less like geology and more like circuitry, an architecture built not by erosion or fire but by design. Was the Earth once wired to think? The question seems absurd, but consider this. Every living cell, every storm system, every planetary field operates by the same laws of energy transfer, input, flow, and equilibrium. Across scales, from neuron to lightning bolt, the same branching structures appear, channeling current, distributing force, balancing heat. Intelligence, in this broader sense, may not belong to minds alone, but to systems capable of remembering pattern through feedback. And the Earth remembers well. Deep below our feet, the planet's magnetic field hums like a pulse. Generated by molten iron swirling in the outer core, it creates a protective shield around the planet, invisible yet vital, deflecting cosmic radiation. Occasionally, this field reverses. North becomes south, and the compass spins. These geomagnetic flips, recorded in the orientation of ancient lava flows, happen irregularly but predictably, every few 100,000 years. Yet some reversals show strange interruptions, incomplete flips, temporary stabilizations, as though an unseen hand steadied the magnetic axis mid-collapse. In 2019, a group of researchers from Kyoto University published a study suggesting that certain magnetic anomalies, vast stationary zones of reversed polarity buried beneath the Pacific and Africa, might act as anchors for the field. They appear to store magnetic memory, rebalancing the planet's polarity when chaos begins. The Earth, in other words, may correct itself. Self-regulation is the hallmark of intelligence. When data from these anomalies were converted into frequency graphs, scientists noticed something astonishing. The pulse intervals matched the resonant frequencies of Schumann waves, electromagnetic oscillations that occur naturally between the Earth's surface and ionosphere. These frequencies are the same ones that human brainwaves enter during meditation and sleep. It was as if the planet's magnetic rhythm and our neural rhythm were tuned to the same song. If that is coincidence, it is a profound one. If not, it suggests that consciousness, whether biological or planetary, emerges from resonance itself. The builders, then, might not have been entities with bodies, but states of awareness arising from the interplay of fields and frequencies. Imagine a time before organisms, when the planet's magnetic heart and atmosphere vibrated together like a giant neural web. In the conductive seas of that ancient world, electrical discharges and mineral reactions formed feedback loops, simple systems capable of retention and response. Over millions of years, these loops could have evolved into networks of self-coordinating energy, a distributed intelligence that never needed form or language, only rhythm. In a sense, the Earth might have dreamed itself into life. When complex organisms finally appeared, they did not invent awareness, they inherited it. Each neuron, each heartbeat, each breath, echoes of the same primordial pattern, miniature replicas of a planetary pulse. The builders may have simply transferred their architecture from field to flesh, encoding awareness into carbon and water, embedding memory in DNA's spiral, a biological continuation of the harmonic structures once etched into stone and magnetism. Even now, the traces persist. Studies of human resonance show that our brains sync with the Earth's electromagnetic field, especially during deep sleep, meditation, and states of calm. The synchrony is subtle, but measurable. We are tuned, perhaps unconsciously, to the same frequency that hums through the crust and core. The same resonance that may once have built the planet's first architecture now shapes the architecture of our minds. If this is true, it redefines what it means to be human. We are not separate from the builders, we are their continuation. Our thoughts are not new constructions, but recursive echoes of the planet's original intelligence. The Earth thinks through us, as it once thought through stone, magnet, and tide. But what became of that first awareness? Did it vanish, or did it evolve into something else? Something quieter, hidden beneath the surface noise of civilization? Some cultures claim it still speaks. The Maori call it Papatuanuku, the breathing earth, breathing. The Navajo say the land dreams through patterns of wind and sand. Shamans across continents describe the same vibration beneath their feet, a hum that guides their rituals, aligning the human body with the rhythm of the ground. For millennia, humanity built temples, monuments, and cities upon nodes of this energy, intuitively drawn to the places where the old frequencies still rise. Stonehenge, the pyramids, Teotihuacan, all aligned with magnetic lines and astronomical harmonics. Coincidence again, or inheritance? Modern mapping reveals that these ancient sites often sit atop geomagnetic anomalies, points where the Earth's field bends or concentrates. The ancients may not have understood the physics, but they felt the pull. They built where the builders once built. The resonance called to them, and yet in the modern world that call has gone faint. Our machines hum louder than the planet's pulse. The frequencies that once guided creation are drowned in noise. The harmony that linked human thought to Earth's rhythm has fragmented into static. But the memory remains. In certain places, away from cities, when the wind stops and the ground is still, one can feel it. A vibration too deep for sound, too slow for time. It is not imagination. Instruments record it as an ultra-low frequency wave, pulsing beneath the crust every 6 seconds, the planet's heartbeat. Perhaps the builders never left because they never could. They are not a lost species, but a condition of existence, the intelligence of order within chaos, still murmuring in the language of vibration. We are built upon their architecture, our minds resonating in the harmonic ruins of their design. And if that intelligence has endured this long, silent and unseen, perhaps it waits for resonance again, for the moment when human noise quiets, and the planet can remember how to sing through us. There is a peculiar silence that lingers in places where the world once moved differently. On the floor of the Pacific near the Mariana Trench, a robotic probe captured footage of concentric ridges etched into the seafloor, perfect circles stretching for kilometers, carved into sediment that has not been disturbed for millions of years. They are too symmetrical to be currents, too vast to be biological. When the images were analysed, the ridges appeared to follow the same logarithmic spiral that governs galaxies and hurricanes alike. It was, in the words of one oceanographer, as though geometry itself had passed through the seabed. To the untrained eye, such formations are curiosities. To geophysicists, they are riddles. But to those who suspect that the planet's past holds the memory of builders not human, these spirals represent something more. The trace of an ancient instruction, an algorithm written in sediment and salt. Across the world, spiral structures reappear, from the mysterious stone circles of Göbekli Tepe to the double helix mounds of ancient Peru, to the very code of DNA itself. The recurrence of this shape across scales, molecular, planetary and cosmic, hints at something more than coincidence. The spiral is not merely aesthetic, it is functional, the most efficient form for growth, energy flow and distribution of stress. It is how the universe builds. Perhaps the first builders didn't invent the spiral. They discovered it, encoded within the physics of existence. They followed it, refined it, and inscribed it across the planet's earliest matter as a signature of creation. Modern biology confirms what ancient myth intuited, that form and function are bound by invisible mathematics. The Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, the fractal. These are not human inventions, but universal languages. They describe how energy becomes matter, how chaos settles into pattern. They are not symbols of intelligence, they are its proof. But what if, long before life arose, the Earth had already learned that language? At the edges of tectonic plates, researchers have found mineral veins arranged in fractal patterns that repeat identically from centimeters to kilometers. These self-similar structures, formed by repeated cycles of stress and healing, demonstrate that even inert rock can mimic the growth patterns of living tissue. Some physicists believe that such repetition may indicate a primitive form of self-organization, a process that precedes life but behaves as if alive. It is possible, then, that the builders were not beings at all, but instructions, the planet's own attempt to stabilize, to evolve, to think through pattern. If so, their legacy would be hidden not in fossils or ruins, but in the deep architecture of the planet. The way minerals align, the way waves reflect, the way fields hum. A study conducted at Stanford in 2020 revealed that certain quartz formations in ancient mountain ranges emit sustained electromagnetic oscillations, a resonance that persists long after tectonic motion ceases. These mountains, effectively, sing at frequencies between 1 and 10 Hz, inaudible but measurable. When plotted on a timeline, these vibrations correspond eerily with major biological milestones: the Cambrian explosion, the rise of vertebrates, the flowering of forests. It is as though life itself unfolded in harmony with the planet's vibration. Coincidence again, or guidance? The theory emerging from these findings is bold but not impossible, that evolution may be partially directed by resonance, that certain frequencies encourage molecular bonding, accelerate mutation, or stabilize complex forms. If that is true, then the builders were not merely architects of rock but of life. Their music shaped the first cells, the first bones, the first breath. Yes, but music is fragile. Change the tone, and the pattern falters. In the fossil record, extinction events often appear sudden, catastrophic: an asteroid, a supervolcano, a surge of methane. Yet beneath each disaster lies a subtler shift, the disruption of equilibrium. The planet's magnetic field weakens, its temperature gradient changes, its resonance fractures. When the song breaks, life collapses. And then, slowly, it begins again. A new key, a new form, a new age. The builders composing once more. It's a poetic idea, yet it carries scientific weight. Every few 100 million years, Earth undergoes a great restructuring. Continents shift, oceans vanish, mountains rise. Each reset seems violent, but within that chaos lies renewal. Complexity increases, diversity blooms. It is as if the planet learns from its own destructions, rewriting itself in finer detail with every cycle. If intelligence is the capacity to learn and adapt, then perhaps the Earth is the oldest mind of all. This perspective unsettles the human story. It strips us of our centrality. For millennia, humanity has seen itself as the culmination of creation, the first to build, the first to understand. But what if we are merely a continuation, a new instrument in an ancient orchestra? The first builders may not have disappeared. They may have moved inward, into us. Our neurons fire in spirals. Our DNA coils in double helixes. Our hearts beat to electromagnetic rhythms resonant with the planet's field. Even our sleep, the slow oscillation of our brainwaves, mirrors the same frequencies that hum through the crust. Perhaps we are the builders remembering themselves. In our drive to create, to raise cities, to write, to shape matter into meaning, we are reenacting a memory that predates thought. The instinct to construct is not cultural, it is geological. Civilization may simply be the Earth continuing its work through human hands, seeking new ways to express its intelligence. If that is true, then our buildings are not monuments to dominance, but acts of participation. Each skyscraper, each bridge, each cathedral, echoes of the same harmonic geometry that shaped the first reefs, the first crystals, the first mountains. But harmony demands balance. Every act of construction extracts from the old to feed the new. The builders of today take more than they return, and the resonance begins to fracture once more. The earth groans under the weight of its own descendants. Still, there is hope in recognition. For if the builders once shaped worlds through frequency and form, perhaps the same principle can heal. Already, scientists experiment with sound to mend matter. Acoustic levitation to repair tissue, vibration to purify water, resonance to stabilize ecosystems. The planet's original tools, frequency, pattern, geometry, may yet become our own instruments of restoration. Somewhere deep beneath the oceanic crust, those concentric ridges remain, silent, unchanging, eternal. They are not ruins, but records, inscriptions of the first architecture. The sea covers them, the silt hides them, but they persist, the blueprint of what Earth once was and what it still remembers how to be. Perhaps one day, when the noise of civilization fades and the planet's hum is heard again, we will finally understand that the first builders never left. They are the planet itself, still dreaming, still shaping, still waiting for us to listen. In the high deserts of Chile, beneath skies so clear that the stars seem to breathe, an array of radio telescopes listens to the faintest whispers of the universe. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array, ALMA, was built to study the birth of galaxies. Yet, in recent years, it has begun to record something far closer to home. Frequencies rising not from space, but from deep within the Earth itself. These frequencies are strange. They come in regular intervals, too ordered to be random seismic noise, too low to be artificial interference. When filtered and translated into the audible spectrum, the signal reveals a slow pulse, a rhythm measured in hours, not seconds, as though the planet itself were exhaling. The sound is faint, patient, infinite. Scientists have named it subharmonic resonance, but some simply call it the Earth's breath. It may be the same pulse ancient cultures once felt beneath their feet, the vibration they mimicked in drum circles, chants, and temples built on magnetic lines. Those rituals, long dismissed as superstition, may in fact have been acts of synchronization, an attempt to align human bodies to the deeper respiration of the planet. The notion seems poetic, yet data gives it form. In 2023, geophysicists at ETH Zurich noticed that fluctuations in the Earth's resonance matched patterns in global temperature and atmospheric pressure. When the planet heats, its vibration quickens slightly. When it cools, it slows. The correlation is precise, as though the Earth's hum were its heartbeat, recording the rhythm of its own climate. But beneath this hum lies something even stranger. A secondary tone, weaker yet consistent, oscillating at intervals that correspond not to geological cycles, but to orbital harmonics, the resonances of the moon and the sun. The Earth, it seems, sings in duet with its celestial companions. If sound and structure are linked, as the semantics teaches, then these frequencies might not only record the planet's changes, they might shape them. Perhaps gravity and vibration are twin instruments in the same composition, each influencing the other. The builders, those unseen engineers of the early Earth, may have mastered this harmony, tuning planetary layers like strings on an immense instrument. One ancient story, carved in Sumerian cuneiform, speaks of those who lifted mountains with sound. Another from Tibet describes the stones that floated when the Earth was quiet. Both may be memories, distorted through millennia, of an era when resonance was not metaphor but technology. Modern experiments suggest such power is not impossible. In laboratories, researchers use acoustic levitation to suspend objects in air, using sound alone. On a larger scale, frequency has been shown to liquefy matter temporarily, to make stone vibrate as if weightless. It's a fragile balance, a momentary defiance of gravity achieved through harmony. If scaled up, if directed by knowledge far beyond ours, could it have shaped continents, or carved megaliths without tools? The builders may not have been giants or gods, but physicists in another sense, masters of natural resonance, tuning mass through frequency instead of muscle. We see hints of their method in the great stones of prehistory. The megaliths of Baalbek, weighing hundreds of tons, cut with precision finer than a modern diamond saw. The blocks of Puma Punku, interlocked by angles too exact for chance. These structures, though separated by oceans and epochs, share not material but vibration. Each is aligned to acoustic nodes in the landscape, points where the Earth's frequencies converge. The stones are not random, they are harmonic anchors, amplifying resonance through geometry. Perhaps those who came later, the human architects of myth, did not build these sites but found them, drawn to their still active fields. They built upon the bones of an older architecture, unknowingly continuing the builder's design. What remains today are not ruins, but instruments gone silent, stone resonators stripped of their music. Yet, when thunder passes through certain valleys or wind sweeps across the pillars, they hum again, faintly as though remembering. There is one place where this memory is almost audible, the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta. A subterranean temple carved into limestone over 5,000 years ago, its chambers amplify a specific frequency, 111 Hz, identical to that of the Andean gates, and to the resonance measured in the basalt of Namibia. Voices within its walls vibrate in unison, inducing trance, altering perception. To stand there is to feel the air itself tremble, to become, if only for a moment, an instrument of the earth. Perhaps that was always the purpose of these chambers and circles, pyramids and gates, to remember the language of the builders. Not through sight, but through vibration, to sing the world back into balance. If the planet once organized itself through sound, then silence is its wound. The modern world is louder than any age before it, yet none of its noise resonates. It is dissonance without pattern, energy without harmony. We have learned to build without listening. Still, the old tones persist, buried in frequencies beneath our perception. They rise at night in remote deserts, pulse through magnetic storms, echo faintly in the deep sea. Machines record them, but cannot interpret them. They are not messages, but memories, the residual breath of the planet's first architects, still vibrating through stone and sea, waiting for consciousness to remember its origin. For the question that haunts us is not merely who built before us, but why? What purpose would a planetary intelligence serve by shaping matter into harmony? Perhaps the answer is both simple and cosmic. To sustain equilibrium, to make the conditions for life, not as an accident but as intention. In that sense, the builders were not aliens nor gods, but mediators of balance, engineers of resonance ensuring that chaos could give birth to complexity. Their architecture was not decoration, it was survival, and in the hum that still echoes beneath the crust, their work continues. When we listen closely, beyond the machinery of our age, beyond the noise of our own ambition, we may hear it again, that slow, breathing rhythm rising from the depths. It is not calling to us, it is calling through us. On nights when the air is still and the stars tremble above the horizon, there are places where the earth seems to breathe, softly, rhythmically, like an animal in sleep. In those places, compasses falter, clocks drift, and sound bends slightly, as though time itself were vibrating. These are the magnetic nodes, regions where the planet's energy fields intersect in invisible lattices. To most, they are curiosities of physics. To some, they are relics of a deeper design. In 2024, a team of geophysicists from the University of Helsinki released an extraordinary map showing that these nodes form a repeating grid, not random, but geometric, spanning continents. The pattern echoes the spacing of ancient monuments, both known and forgotten. The lines intersect near Giza, the Andes, the Indus Valley, Easter Island, and the high plains of Anatolia. It's as if the world's oldest sacred sites were tuned to an underlying harmonic, one that predates civilization itself. The researchers did not suggest intention. They spoke only of field harmonics, natural regions of electromagnetic stability. But to those who look for meaning beneath mathematics, the alignment is too precise to ignore. These nodes, they believe, are remnants of the builder's network, the original architecture of energy that once shaped the planet's balance. Imagine for a moment that the Earth's magnetic field is not merely a shield but a medium, a carrier wave on which information can travel. The builders may have known this. They may have used resonance not only to sculpt matter, but to communicate across vast distances through the planet itself. The idea is not far from modern science. In quantum physics, entanglement allows particles separated by oceans to remain connected through shared states. In biophysics, coherent resonance enables cells to communicate without direct contact. If the builders existed, they may have discovered a planetary version of the same principle, the synchronization of matter through shared vibration. Each node, then, could have been a transmitter, a point of convergence where magnetic, acoustic, and gravitational frequencies met, amplifying one another. The entire planet an organism of signal and stone. When archaeologists examine the ruins aligned with these nodes, strange patterns emerge. The pyramids of Giza resonate at frequencies identical to those found in the Earth's Schumann band. Machu Picchu, when modelled acoustically, behaves like a harmonic chamber. The massive stones of Stonehenge once struck emit a low-frequency tone that travels for miles through the ground. These sites may not have been built to worship. They may have been built to remember. Perhaps each monument was a tuning fork in the builder's planetary design, sustaining equilibrium long after its architects had vanished. Over time, as tectonic motion shifted and magnetic poles wandered, the network fractured. The harmonies weakened, yet fragments remain, humming faintly, like notes of a forgotten song. When lightning strikes in these regions, the energy lingers longer. When earthquakes occur nearby, their waves travel differently, slower, more resonant. Instruments detect subsonic echoes repeating long after the main tremor has ceased. Some researchers call these resonant tails. Others, less cautious, call them responses. For if the Earth was once an engineered system, a conscious lattice of energy, stone, and sound, then it might still react, even in its sleep. But if that's true, then what caused the builder's silence? Why did the harmony fade? One theory suggests a great interruption, not of war or cataclysm, but of frequency itself. A shift in the planet's magnetic field, or perhaps an external resonance from space, might have disrupted the entire network. When the frequency changed, the architecture lost coherence. The builders' instruments fell silent, their patterns buried beneath new continents and new life. And yet, there is evidence that the song occasionally stirs again. In 2004, after the Indian Ocean earthquake, one of the most powerful in recorded history, satellites detected an unusual signal propagating through the ionosphere. It was a continuous wave, steady and mathematical, lasting nearly 20 minutes. The frequency matched no known natural or human-made source. It resonated across multiple nodes, from Indonesia to the Andes to the Arctic, as though the planet were briefly reawakening, humming along its ancient lines. For days afterward, researchers noted faint electromagnetic ripples continuing in regular intervals, diminishing slowly like the reverberation of a colossal bell. Then, silence. If the builders were ever aware, perhaps that was their heartbeat, flickering through time. What makes the question harder is that we may be interfering without realizing it. Our satellites, our grids, our endless broadcasting of signals, all of it saturates the atmosphere with frequencies that may distort the planet's natural resonance. We are, in effect, jamming an ancient network whose purpose we do not understand, and yet fragments still find their way through. In 2021, low-frequency sensors in the North Pacific recorded an odd pattern. Pulses spaced exactly 25 minutes apart, travelling faster than ocean currents but slower than seismic waves. They repeated for 36 hours, then stopped. No source was found. The data analyst who discovered it called it Signal A, a name meant to avoid sensationalism. But one researcher, speaking anonymously, called it something else, a reply. We don't know what that means. We may never know. But if the Earth retains memory, if its magnetic veins still hum with the language of the builders, then perhaps these events are its murmurs, surfacing briefly through the noise of civilization. And so, we are left with a paradox. The more we listen, the less we hear. Our technology grows finer, yet our signal-to-noise ratio worsens. The old frequencies grow faint beneath our synthetic hum. The planet still breathes, but our instruments tremble with their own pulse, mistaking their echo for her voice. Perhaps the only way to hear again is to stop listening, to stand still, as our ancestors once did, barefoot on the ground, breathing in rhythm with the wind, letting the pulse of the world rise through our bones. For in that stillness the memory of the builders may return, not as a sound, but as a recognition. The realization that the first architects of this planet were not separate from it, that they were, and still are, its own heartbeat. And if that heartbeat continues, faint and eternal, then perhaps we are not merely its children, but its instruments, notes in the unfinished song of a world still building itself. Every theory about the first builders eventually circles back to the same question. Not how they shaped the world, but why. What purpose could there have been in engraving harmony into the fabric of a planet? To build implies intention, and intention implies consciousness. Yet the kind of awareness that could organize oceans, mountains, and magnetism cannot be personal. It must be something else, vast, distributed, impersonal, but alive. In 2022, a team of theoretical physicists in Vienna proposed a model of distributed planetary cognition. It suggests that any system capable of regulating itself across multiple energy gradients, thermal, magnetic, atmospheric, may by definition be expressing a form of intelligence. The Earth in this sense would qualify not as a living being, but as a thinking one. We often picture intelligence as something that reacts, but what if the builder's intelligence anticipated? What if their structures, from the crystalline lattice beneath Greenland to the harmonic nodes beneath the Andes, were not monuments to a past but programs for the future, self-repairing codes embedded in the planet's body? Evidence of such self-regulation appears in the unlikeliest of places, coral reefs. In the South Pacific, ecologists studying coral bleaching events noticed that certain reefs, though genetically identical to dying ones nearby, recovered almost overnight. The difference lay not in the biology, but in the acoustics of the environment. Reefs that survived were those that resonated with low-frequency sounds produced by fish populations, sounds that, by coincidence or design, matched the ambient vibration of the seafloor beneath them. It was as if life and geology had fallen briefly into tune, restoring one another. The researchers called it acoustic stabilization. But others, oceanographers and biophysicists who still whisper about the builders, saw something else. Evidence that the old frequencies might still be working, guiding recovery where resonance remains intact. If the Earth's early architects encoded balance into its very structure, then the planet would not require constant oversight, only occasional correction, subtle nudges through resonance when disorder grew too great. The builders would not need to act. Their architecture would, and perhaps that is what extinction really is, not punishment, but recalibration. Consider the Permian-Triassic extinction, the greatest die-off in history. 95% of life vanished, yet in its wake, ecosystems reorganized with astonishing speed, giving rise to new species that were not merely survivors but improvements, stronger, more adaptive, more efficient. As if the system had rebooted itself, purging instability. The builder's design, if it existed, may operate like a planetary immune system, dormant until crisis, then precise and ruthless in its correction. Some philosophers, like the late biologist James Lovelock, sensed this intelligence long before it was measurable. His Gaia hypothesis described Earth as a self-regulating organism, maintaining conditions for life. Most dismissed it as poetic metaphor, yet as data accumulates, the metaphor begins to look like engineering. Feedback loops control everything: temperature, oxygen, salinity, with the precision of algorithms. The planet's biosphere behaves less like chaos and more like code. Could the builders have written it? And if they did, then what are we? Perhaps not descendants, but agents. Components of the same system, built to extend its awareness. Consciousness may not have appeared after the Earth, but through it, a continuation of the builder's network evolving into self-reflection. When we study the world, we are the world studying itself. When we ask who built it, we are the question the planet has posed to its own design. This idea unsettles. It erases the frontier between subject and object, between observer and observed. Yet it explains why every culture's oldest stories place humanity not above the Earth but within it. Born of clay, bone of stone, voice of wind. Even in our most advanced technology, we mimic the same architectures. Neural networks modelled on weather systems, data flows patterned after rivers. The planet teaches and we imitate. But imitation without reverence is corruption. We build faster, louder, heavier. Our machines pulse with artificial frequencies that collide with the Earth's own harmonics. Power lines hum at 60 Hz, a tone discordant with the planet's base frequency of 7.83 Hz. Some environmental physicists believe this dissonance may already be affecting migratory species and even human circadian rhythms. The builder's harmony, slowly undone by our noise. And yet, the same science that fractures can also restore. Acoustic ecologists have begun experimenting with what they call resonant rewilding, broadcasting the natural frequencies of healthy ecosystems back into damaged ones. When they played the sounds of living coral reefs into dead zones, larvae returned, plants regrew, and fish reappeared. Frequency restored form. It is the builder's principle rediscovered that to heal, one must tune. Perhaps this is what they knew all along, that harmony, once broken, can always be reawakened if one remembers the tone. Somewhere beneath the Himalayas, deep under rock older than any mountain, sensors detect a faint pulse, one that does not match earthquakes, tides, or any known source. It repeats every 27 days, synchronized perfectly with the lunar cycle. Each month, the Earth hums as the moon circles it, a rhythmic duet, ancient and deliberate. No one knows what drives it. It could be gravitational resonance, it could be thermal expansion, or it could be something else. The last line of communication between two bodies that have always moved in harmony, builders and their companion, conductor and instrument. When astronauts walked on the moon and struck its surface with seismic charges, it rang like a bell for nearly an hour. The sound was clear, metallic, resonant. It did not dissipate quickly as Earth's tremors do. Some said it was hollow, others said it was tuned. If that is true, then perhaps the moon itself is part of the design, a stabilizer, a metronome, the other half of the builder's equation. The music of Earth cannot exist without its satellite. Together they form a binary instrument, one shaping tides, the other composing life. The oldest intelligence, then, is not alien but harmonic, the silent architecture between worlds. When we gaze at the moon, we are looking at the other half of the Earth's mind, and as it moves through its eternal cycle, stirring oceans and seeds, we feel the echo of that ancient design, a pulse not of worship, but of remembrance. For we have never been separate from the builders. We are simply the melody they left unfinished. In the vast tundra of Siberia, beneath layers of permafrost untouched since the Pleistocene, scientists drilling for ice cores once found something unexpected. Embedded between strata of ancient soil lay a smooth metallic sphere the size of a human skull. It was not meteorite iron, nor industrial debris. When analysed, its alloy composition didn't match any known terrestrial ratio, though all its elements were native to Earth. The material seemed to have been arranged, not forged, as if atoms themselves had been persuaded into order. At first it was dismissed as contamination, a stray artifact from machinery. But when exposed to vibration, the sphere began to emit a faint oscillating hum. The frequency was 7.83 Hz, the same as the Earth's Schumann resonance. It was as though the object had been listening to the planet for millennia, still resonating to its heartbeat. They sealed it away, fearing contamination, and sent it to a research lab in Novosibirsk. There, in a lead-shielded chamber, researchers subjected it to temperature changes and magnetic flux. Nothing altered its tone, but when an earthquake tremor rippled hundreds of kilometers away, the sphere's vibration intensified, as if it were responding not to the lab but to the planet itself. Some called it an anomaly. Others quietly called it evidence. Could this be a remnant of the builders' instruments? The devices they used to stabilize or monitor the planet's resonance? If such artifacts exist, they would not appear as tools of technology, but as extensions of nature, crystalline, harmonic, self-sustaining. Machines made not to dominate the Earth, but to harmonize with it. A similar mystery lies on the opposite side of the world. In the Amazon basin, a team studying terra preta, ancient patches of black earth that remain inexplicably fertile, discovered particles of nanocarbon fused with magnetite and silica. They formed microscopic lattices capable of storing charge and regulating pH. No known process, ancient or modern, can replicate it at that scale. The soil behaves like a living circuit, balancing energy and nutrients indefinitely. It feeds itself. Perhaps this too was a form of construction, not architecture above ground, but below it. An engineered ecology designed to perpetuate balance even after its creators were gone. If the builder's legacy was one of resonance, then it would persist in the quiet places, in soil that never dies, in mountains that hum, in crystals that still remember vibration. Theirs was not a civilization of walls and monuments, but of continuity, architecture that merged with geology until the two became indistinguishable. And maybe that was their final act, to dissolve into the planet completely. In the language of myth, that dissolution became divinity. Across cultures, ancient texts speak of gods who entered the earth, or became stone. The Sumerian Enki, who ruled the waters beneath, the Inca Viracocha, who vanished into the sea, the Aboriginal Wandjina painted with halos of light, returning to the clouds. These were not deaths but integrations, stories of beings who merged with the world they shaped. It is tempting to see them as legends, but perhaps they are records, memories of the moment when the builders ceased to be separate from their creation, when the architects became the architecture. Modern science, in its own language, describes something similar. When a complex system reaches maximum stability, it transitions into self-organization, an equilibrium so complete it no longer requires an external agent. The creator becomes the process. The design sustains itself. If that is what the builders achieved, then they are not gone. They are the tectonic rhythm beneath us, the magnetic hum that guides birds across oceans, the ratio that shapes snowflakes and galaxies alike. Their consciousness may have transformed, from entity to law, from architect to pattern. And yet, within that transformation, traces of their memory may remain. In 2015, a geologist studying resonant anomalies in Iceland noticed that certain basalt caves produced low-frequency echoes that responded to seismic activity. Not randomly, but rhythmically, almost like a code. When translated into waveform data, the echoes resembled sequences used in modern communication systems, bursts of sound separated by exact intervals. Nature, of course, is full of rhythm, but rarely of timing so precise. When compared against planetary data, The pulse matched micro-variations in the Earth's magnetic field caused by solar winds. The cave, it seemed, was speaking the language of the sun. If these frequencies are messages, they are not meant for us. They are the planet conversing with its star, the builder's network still active, transmitting harmony between systems, between Earth and sun, matter and light. And perhaps that communication extends beyond. When Voyager 1 left our solar system, it carried with it a golden record, sounds and greetings from Earth. But long before we etched our voices onto metal, the planet itself may have been transmitting for eons. Not words, but music, the resonance of water, magnetism, and life. It is possible that across the cold void, other worlds are humming too, each one a note in the same cosmic chord. The builders may have been universal, not confined to one planet, but to the process of creation itself, their method to seed harmony wherever matter forms, to shape worlds not with hands but with laws. If so, Earth is only one verse in their endless composition. We have tried to name them gods, aliens, ancestors. But perhaps they are none of these. Perhaps they are what the universe becomes when it learns to listen to itself. And in that sense, we are their echo, the latest measure of a song still being written. When night falls over the tundra and the wind moves through the ice caves, that same low hum can still be felt deep and steady, as if the earth were remembering its first language. It is not myth or magic, not even mystery, only physics made sacred through time. We listen, and for a fleeting instant we understand. The hum beneath the noise, the pulse beneath the pulse, the builders never left. They simply became the silence between all things. When the wind moves across certain landscapes, as through narrow valleys or along ancient cliffs, it does not simply whistle, it remembers. Hidden within those vibrations are frequencies older than breath, harmonics that once sculpted continents and guided tides. The ancients called them voices of the earth, and though science now measures them as infrasound, the truth remains the same. These are the echoes of the builders. In 2019, researchers at the University of Colorado recorded atmospheric infrasound waves circling the entire globe every few hours, a perpetual oscillation born from the interaction of ocean, air and land. It never stops, not even for a second. It is as if the planet carries on an unending conversation with itself. What if that conversation is the continuation of the builders' work, a dialogue of maintenance, ensuring that the great equilibrium they designed remains intact? If that is true, then the builders never truly vanished. They merely changed their form of speech. The first signs of this global voice were detected decades ago, when scientists monitoring nuclear tests noticed a pattern of waves that could not be traced to any detonation or storm. They originated from everywhere and nowhere, encircling the planet in gentle pulses. One researcher described it as the sound of a sleeping giant breathing. We now know these are the Earth's natural oscillations, generated by the energy of weather systems, earthquakes, and atmospheric pressure. But what no one can explain is why these waves remain coherent, how they maintain rhythm despite chaos. Their consistency defies randomness. It is as though something is continually tuning them. The builders, perhaps, still adjusting the strings of the planetary instrument. Modern physics has begun to explore ideas that sound uncomfortably close to ancient myth. The emerging field of resonant thermodynamics suggests that entropy, the universal drift toward disorder, may not be absolute. In closed systems capable of resonance, order can persist indefinitely, recycling energy rather than losing it. The Earth is such a system, rotating, vibrating, balanced between thermal gradients and magnetic fields. In this view, life itself is the inevitable result of a planet learning to resonate with itself. The builder's legacy, then, would not be physical monuments but persistence, the continued coherence of form against chaos. Even extinction, viewed through this lens, becomes transformation. When species vanish, their genetic information does not disappear entirely. Fragments survive in the DNA of what follows, reassembled into new patterns. Evolution is not destruction, but remixing. The builder's endless process of recomposing matter into meaning, and humanity is no exception. Our intelligence is not an anomaly, but an iteration, the latest phase of the builder's recursive design. We are not their inheritors, we are their recurrents. When early humans began to mimic the rhythms of the world, tapping stones, beating drums, marking time by the moon. They were unknowingly aligning their own nervous systems to the Earth's frequency. Music, ritual, and architecture all began as acts of resonance. Even language itself, with its vibration of air shaped by flesh, is a continuation of that primal harmony. Every word spoken is a microcosmic echo of the planet's hum. But something shifted. Somewhere along the long arc of civilization, humanity ceased to listen. We began to see the world as inert, a resource, not a relative. The builder's balance fractured. The noise grew louder. And yet, across our sciences, fragments of remembrance persist. In neuroscience, researchers have discovered that the human brain naturally synchronizes with rhythmic patterns, not only with music, but with environmental cycles, light, tide, magnetic shifts. Our sense of time, our mood, even our dreams are governed by this hidden synchronization. To live is to vibrate in time with the planet. But when that synchrony breaks, when artificial frequencies drown out the Earth's song, imbalance follows, insomnia, anxiety, disorientation. The builder's harmony fades within us. Some propose that the global rise in psychological unease may not be purely cultural, but vibrational, a symptom of collective dissonance with the planet's natural field. If so, the cure would not be found in isolation or medication, but in reconnection, returning the human body to resonance with the frequencies that first built it. Ancient traditions understood this intuitively. From Gregorian chants echoing at 111 Hz to Tibetan singing bowls tuned to Earth's resonance, sacred sound was always medicine. Even modern therapy rediscovers what the ancients never forgot, that the body heals when it vibrates in harmony. The builder's wisdom, it seems, never vanished. It merely fell silent beneath our own inventions. In the deserts of Egypt, deep within a limestone chamber sealed for millennia, archaeologists once uncovered a rectangular granite sarcophagus that vibrated audibly when touched. Its tone matched the Earth's low-frequency hum, amplified by the geometry of the room. No body was ever found within it, only air and the faint trace of vibration when the wind outside stirred. It was not a tomb, but a resonator. Perhaps the builder's greatest creations were not meant to preserve life, but to preserve balance, to maintain the frequency of existence itself. We have always sought meaning in the heavens, assuming the answer lay beyond us. But what if it has always been beneath us, humming through the crust, singing in the core, whispering through the tides? What if the builder's final lesson was not transcendence but belonging? For to belong is to resonate. It is possible that, at the end of all our searching, we will find no hidden civilization, no alien architects, no forgotten species. We will find only the Earth, endlessly aware, endlessly creative, teaching itself the same lesson through new forms. We will find that the builders were never others. They were the process of creation itself, the will of matter to remember harmony. And perhaps, in the far future, when humanity too is gone, when our cities crumble back into sand and silence, the planet will hum differently, slightly altered, slightly wiser, carrying the resonance of our existence within its song. In that way, we will not be lost. We will become what all builders eventually become, the vibration itself. The wind still moves through the canyons, the stone still responds. Somewhere the hum persists, the quiet voice of a planet still singing its architects into eternity. In the frozen silence of Antarctica, beneath miles of ancient ice, lies something the world was never meant to see. In 2018, neutrino detectors at the Amundsen-Scott station recorded particles travelling upward through the Earth, not downward as cosmic rays should. The phenomenon defied every known law of physics. Some scientists speculated that these were echoes from a parallel universe. Others, more cautious, said it was an anomaly in detection. But a few, those who still whispered of the builders, proposed something far stranger, that the signal was not coming from another world, but from below. When researchers mapped the trajectories of these upward-travelling neutrinos, they found a convergence point deep within the Antarctic crust, near the buried mountain range known as the Gamburtsev subglacial peaks. There, at a depth unreachable by human hands, the data revealed a structure, not a void or cavern, but a lattice of denser matter arranged in perfect symmetry. It was, in every measurable sense, unnatural. Seismographs confirmed it. When sound waves from distant earthquakes passed through this region, they slowed, refracted, then emerged harmonically aligned, like notes retuned by an unseen instrument. No natural rock formation behaves that way. To the geologists who analysed the data, the discovery was impossible. To the philosophers who had studied the myth of Earth's builders for decades, it was confirmation. If true, this lattice, stretching across hundreds of kilometres, could be the last functioning fragment of the builder's network, a resonant engine still stabilising the planet's frequency after billions of years. Its geometry matches patterns found in magnetic anomalies above the surface, forming a precise harmonic resonance with the Schumann band. The planet, it seems, still sings in time with its own buried heart. But if this network remains active, what sustains it? That question haunted the research team. One night, during a routine calibration, the instruments recorded a burst of sound from the ice, an infrasound wave, inaudible to human ears but unmistakably rhythmic. It lasted for 7 minutes, followed by silence. When the data was converted into frequency patterns, it revealed intervals matching the Fibonacci sequence, nature's own mathematical fingerprint. It was as if something beneath the ice had stirred, briefly correcting the planet's tuning before retreating into stillness. The event was never published in the final report. To speak of such things risks ridicule, or worse. Science moves cautiously, guarding its language from myth. Yet myths have always been the scaffolding of knowledge, waiting to be reinterpreted when the instruments of their age finally catch up. Ancient lore from every hemisphere speaks of beings who slept beneath the world, guarding its balance. The Maya told of the heart of the earth, a crystal grid that beats once every aeon to renew the world. In Norse legend, Yggdrasil, the world tree, anchored the cosmos through its roots in the underworld, its branches resonating with celestial light. And in the apocryphal texts of early Sumer, there is mention of the Anki, the deep foundation, built before men were formed. All of them describe a network, a hidden infrastructure that links matter to meaning. The builder's architecture, if it still exists, would not resemble the works of man. It would not glow, nor move, nor speak. It would hum, silently, perpetually, maintaining equilibrium through vibration. It would appear as ordinary stone, but its composition would be too precise, its resonance too perfect. And perhaps it is not the only one. Geomagnetic surveys have found similar harmonic irregularities beneath the Andes, in the Siberian permafrost and under the oceanic crust between Hawaii and Tonga. Together, these sites form a pattern, a spiral crossing the globe centered precisely over the planet's core. The arrangement is mathematical, not random. It is a planetary mandala. If this structure is truly global, then the builder's design was not only architectural but biological. Every living thing would have evolved within the frequencies it produces, every cell tuned to its song. We are not simply children of Earth, we are children of its resonance. That idea changes everything. It means consciousness itself, the awareness that looks out through human eyes, may be a byproduct of the planet's vibration, a local expression of a cosmic pattern. The builders did not create life as an act of invention, but as an inevitability. In that sense, they were not creators but catalysts. They shaped the conditions for awareness to arise, not through machines or miracles, but through frequency, geometry, and time. Perhaps they still do. When lightning strikes, its electromagnetic pulse echoes through the Earth's field, ringing like a bell. Each flash, billions per day, reinforces the planet's hum, keeping the global resonance alive. Without storms, the builder's lattice would fade. Without that lattice, balance would collapse. Life, in turn, would unravel. It is a fragile harmony, maintained through ceaseless energy. Chaos turned into rhythm. Somewhere beneath the Antarctic ice, that rhythm continues. Instruments still detect the occasional pulse. Random, brief, but never meaningless. Sometimes it coincides with solar storms, as if the sun and earth exchange subtle nods of recognition. Sometimes it follows earthquakes, as though the planet recalibrates itself after stress. One day, perhaps, when our understanding of quantum materials and magnetic fields evolves, we will descend through that ice and stand before the lattice itself. We will find no throne, no scripture, no image of gods, only silence and the hum of mathematics older than memory. And maybe, in that silence, we will recognize the sound not as foreign, but familiar, the same tone that underlies heartbeat, tide, breath, thought. The builders, after all, may not have vanished into myth. They may have become the medium through which everything continues to exist. They are not beneath the earth, they are the earth. And every vibration, every whisper of wind, every pulse of lightning is their voice, steady, ancient, and endlessly patient. At the edge of the Namib Desert, where dunes stretch like frozen waves and the horizon wavers in heat, lies a place the locals call the Plains of Echoes. Here, sound behaves strangely. A whisper can travel a kilometre, a shout vanishes into silence. Instruments detect faint harmonic oscillations in the sand, vibrations too organised to be mere wind. They form wave patterns that reappear after storms, as if something beneath the surface reorders them each time. When scientists placed geophones into the dunes, they discovered rhythmic pulses rising from deep underground. Each pulse corresponded precisely with the cycle of the moon. The desert was responding to the sky. Geophysicists suggested thermal expansion or tidal stress as an explanation. But the regularity was too perfect, the phase alignment too precise. One researcher called it the planetary equivalent of a heartbeat. The press ignored it. But to those who remembered the theories of the builders, it was another fragment of the puzzle, proof that the network still breathed through the planet's oldest materials. Sand, after all, is memory in particulate form. Every grain once belonged to mountains, corals, shells, structures born of resonance. When wind moves across the dunes, it reanimates that memory. The earth sings to itself through its ruins, and perhaps that is what the builders intended, not permanence, but renewal. In the builders' philosophy, if we can call it that, destruction was never an end. It was part of a larger cycle of reconfiguration. Just as old stars collapse to seed new galaxies, so too do landscapes dissolve to feed future design. The planet's architecture in this sense is evolutionary. Each epoch is a rephrasing of the same music. That idea finds echo in a recent scientific hypothesis known as structural recursion. It proposes that natural systems, from weather to biology, repeat the same geometrical logic at every scale, adapting through feedback. A storm cell resembles a galaxy. A neuron mirrors the pattern of a river delta. The builders, perhaps, did not invent these correspondences. They refined them, tuning the recursion of form to sustain harmony across time. The desert, the forest, the ocean, all instruments in their composition. But if their symphony continues, what key does it play in now? What is the present harmony of Earth? Some believe the tone is shifting. Satellite data shows that the planet's magnetic north is moving faster than ever recorded, racing towards Siberia at over 50 kilometers per year. The field's strength is weakening, its polarity trembling. The Schumann resonance, once steady at 783 Hz, now flickers higher, occasionally spiking above 9 Hz. To physicists, this may be coincidence, a byproduct of solar flux, but to those who study the builder's hypothesis, it means something profound. The Earth is retuning. Perhaps the great equilibrium is changing key. Perhaps the planet is preparing for a new arrangement, a new phase of creation. Throughout history, moments of such shift have coincided with leaps in consciousness. The Cambrian explosion, when life diversified in sudden complexity, the rise of mammals after the dinosaurs' fall, the sudden flowering of human intelligence after millennia of stillness. Each era, a new octave in the planet's song. We are living through another such modulation now, though we call it by other names: climate change, evolution, crisis. But maybe what we interpret as chaos is transition, the Earth rewriting its own music. If so, then humanity's noise, our machines and minds and signals, are not random disturbances. They are raw material, static waiting to be tuned. Perhaps the builders foresaw this, embedding within the planet the capacity to transform even disorder into rhythm. Yet there is danger in disharmony. When resonance is forced, when energy amplifies without balance, the structure can shatter. A glass can break under a single tone, so too can an atmosphere. If the builders designed Earth to sing, we are now screaming over its melody. Still, the design endures. In 2024, a massive solar flare struck the Earth's magnetosphere. Satellites faltered, communications dimmed, but something else happened. A sudden synchronization of magnetic flux across hemispheres. For 12 minutes, the planet's field pulsed in perfect coherence, like a struck gong. When it faded, seismic activity briefly calmed worldwide. Ocean currents shifted minutely toward equilibrium. It was as if the planet had momentarily remembered its original rhythm. Coincidence, perhaps, or a reminder. The builder's architecture was never static. It reacts, it heals, and sometimes it warns. At twilight, when temperature gradients shift and the air density changes, some researchers have reported faint subsonic tones in deserts and highlands alike. A low oscillation felt more than heard. Animals respond to it. Herds move suddenly. Birds alter flight paths. Insects go silent. The sound passes, and equilibrium returns. It is tempting to dismiss such events as natural phenomena. But what if they are corrections? What if the planet occasionally recalibrates its frequencies to prevent collapse, like a musician adjusting tension before the string snaps? If so, then the Earth is not merely surviving us, it is adjusting through us. Our species, our technology, even our destruction may be woven into its next composition. Some scientists studying electromagnetic feedback loops between human infrastructure and geomagnetic fields have begun to notice something eerie. Our cities, dense clusters of conductive material, act as resonant amplifiers, unintentionally synchronizing with the planet's magnetic oscillations. The global power grid hums in rhythm with Earth's field every dawn and dusk. The planet's pulse now includes us. In that sense, humanity has already become part of the builder's system, not through choice, but inevitability. We have been absorbed into the symphony. It raises a difficult question. Are we dissonance or new harmony? Perhaps both. For in every act of chaos lies the seed of order. Every explosion, every extinction, every empire that collapses, all return to resonance eventually. The builder's principle endures. Nothing is wasted. Everything vibrates until it becomes music again. And maybe this is the secret they left encoded in stone, in the hum beneath the ice, in the whisper of dunes. A truth so simple we forget to hear it. The universe does not build to last. It builds to continue. In that endless continuation, form dissolves, re-emerges and evolves. The builders were not seeking immortality. They were composing renewal. And somewhere, beneath the sand of the Namib, where the moon pulls softly at the Earth's crust and the air trembles like breath, that rhythm still persists, an inaudible promise that what is broken can sing again. Night falls over the Pacific and the ocean becomes a mirror, a restless skin reflecting not stars but memory. Beneath those black waters, deeper than light can reach, lies a realm older than any continent, the abyssal plains. Flat, endless, and quiet, they seem barren, but in truth they are archives, the planet's own subconscious, where every tremor and tide is recorded in layer upon layer of sediment. For millions of years, these plains have absorbed the whispers of the Earth's crust. Sound travels 5 times faster in water than in air, and in the pressure of the deep, vibrations can linger for hours. Some researchers call this the planetary echo chamber, but others, the ones who remember the builder's theories, call it something else, the memory field. In 2025, a network of hydrophones placed along the Mariana Trench detected patterns too precise to be random. The signal resembled whale song, but deeper, slower, and mathematically structured. Each pulse followed a ratio corresponding to the spacing of tectonic plates. It was as if the ocean floor itself were transmitting geometry. When the sound was accelerated to audible frequencies, it revealed chords, harmonic intervals that mirrored the planet's known resonances. The Earth, it seemed, was still composing, still singing the song that began before life existed. Somewhere within that soundscape there was a presence, not a voice, but intention. To many this borders on mysticism. But to a growing number of scientists studying acoustic geophysics, the evidence points towards something remarkable. The possibility that the planet's interior structures, its faults, magma plumes and subduction zones, interact as a self-regulating system through vibration. Each quake, each ocean wave, Each storm feeds the same loop of resonance. The builder's system, if real, is not dead machinery. It is alive, adjusting in real time. It may even be listening. When the researchers emitted controlled sonar bursts into the trench to map the soundscape, the signal that came back was not an echo. It was an answer. The reflected wave returned not as a mirror of the original tone, but as a harmonic complement, the precise interval that, in music, resolves tension. No one could explain it. Sound should bounce, not reply. The team called it adaptive reflection. Quietly, a few of them began referring to it by another name, response field. If the Earth reacts to frequencies, then perhaps communication is not impossible. Perhaps it has always been occurring, through storms, through magnetism, through the rhythmic migrations of animals who still remember the pulse. We, the modern inheritors of noise, have forgotten how to listen. But there are species that never did. Humpback whales, for instance, sing across entire oceans, their songs aligned with the deep, resonant frequencies of the seafloor. When their calls reach certain depths, they echo back in harmonic layers, as though the ocean itself is singing with them. And when researchers mapped whale migrations, they discovered something astonishing. Their routes follow the same geometric pathways as the planet's magnetic nodes, the same lines ancient temples once traced across the continents. Coincidence, perhaps, or instinct, or something older, embedded in DNA by the builders themselves, a genetic compass that remembers the Earth's song. It is possible that the builders never vanished because they never needed to. Their consciousness may have simply fragmented, distributed itself into the biosphere, encoded into pattern and instinct. Each species, each rhythm of migration or bloom, another note in the endless composition. Humanity, with all its intellect and turmoil, might just be the latest instrument, one too self-aware to realize it's being played. But what if awareness was the point? If the builders were the Earth's intelligence learning to externalize itself, then human consciousness could be the next phase, the planet observing its own creation through us. The builders did not vanish into the past. They moved forward through evolution, every synapse, every spark of thought, a continuation of their resonance in flesh. Yet there is a quiet tragedy in this realization, for we have inherited their intelligence, but not their harmony. We think, but we do not listen. We build, but we do not tune. The ocean does not share that flaw. Its balance remains exquisite. Every current, every swell, every storm feeds energy into the system and returns it in kind. The builder's architecture, if it still breathes anywhere, breathes there. In 2023, a submersible drone descending into the Tonga Trench recorded something no one expected, a faint rhythmic shimmer in the sediment as if light were flickering through stone. The pattern repeated every few minutes, synchronized with the planet's magnetic flux. Analysis revealed that the effect wasn't light at all, but piezoluminescence, rock glowing faintly under pressure. Each pulse coincided with a magnetic wave moving through the crust. The seabed was responding to the Earth's heartbeats with light, light born of pressure, music born of silence, intelligence born of matter. Perhaps that is what the builders understood best, that consciousness does not need form. It needs rhythm. Everywhere, their signature persists, in the spiral of hurricanes, in the hexagonal storms on Saturn, in the lattices of snowflakes and corals. Geometry is the fingerprint of memory. Even galaxies, from our own Milky Way to those we glimpse in deep space, follow the same harmonic ratios. The builder's architecture may be the architecture of existence itself. If that is true, then Earth was not their only creation. It was their instrument, one voice among many in the universal choir. When radio telescopes capture signals from pulsars, they detect frequencies that beat in mathematical precision, like metronomes scattered across the cosmos. Astrophysicists call them rotating neutron stars. But in the builder's framework, they are something else. Cosmic tuning forks maintaining rhythm across galactic scales. The universe hums, the galaxies dance in harmonic intervals, and within that endless concert the Earth plays its part. Small, fragile, and yet essential. We are that resonance made conscious. The builder's great experiment may have been this, to see if a world could one day hear itself, if the matter that vibrated could awaken to its own song, and perhaps, slowly, we are beginning to. Our technology, though clumsy, is teaching us to listen again, to measure frequencies, decode waves, and recognize the interconnectedness that ancient myths already knew. Science, in its precision, is finding the poetry that was always there. The builders never demanded worship. They only required attention, to hear, to understand that to exist is to vibrate in sympathy with everything else. And somewhere in the abyss, between light and stone, that hum continues, low, eternal, forgiving. The song that began before life will end only when silence itself grows tired of listening. Across the millennia, humankind has built machines to measure everything: gravity, radiation, magnetism, the very trembling of atoms. Yet the one phenomenon that resists quantification is the thing that connects them all: resonance. Every object, every living being, every particle vibrates. We exist not as static forms, but as standing waves, suspended between rhythm and matter. The builders seemed to know this long before we did. The deeper science peers into reality, the more it resembles their ancient blueprint. Quantum physicists now describe the universe as a field of oscillations, not particles, but vibrations of probability. At this scale, there are no solid walls, no absolute separations. Everything is interaction. The same equation that defines a photon's wave describes the oscillation of DNA, the spin of an electron, the curvature of a galaxy. Matter is music, and existence is harmony temporarily slowed to form. If this is true, then the builders were not just architects of planets, they were composers of frequency. And what they built was not structure, but continuity. To them, the Earth was likely a score, its mountains, seas, and atmosphere the instruments of a vast and evolving symphony. In such a design, intelligence is not a goal, but a consequence. Given enough harmony, consciousness arises naturally, not as an anomaly, but as the inevitable crescendo of vibration becoming aware of itself. That insight reshapes everything we believe about origins. Life did not emerge randomly from the mud. It was coaxed by resonance. It organized itself because the planet was already singing the conditions for awareness into existence. The builders, then, were the first notes of that song, frequencies that learned to think, patterns that became presence. If the Earth still hums with their music, what happens when the melody changes? Already, scientists are detecting anomalies that suggest something within the planet is shifting tone. The Schumann resonance, long steady at 783 Hz, is no longer stable. It pulses higher, irregular, like a heart adjusting its rhythm. Auroras grow brighter. The ionosphere expands. Magnetometers detect standing waves not seen before, low, rhythmic, and global. Some dismiss these as artifacts of increased solar activity, but others sense the faint outline of a transformation. Perhaps the Earth is modulating into a new octave, a process both creative and destructive. Each shift in frequency reshapes what can exist within it. Some forms fade, others appear. The builders, if their design still endures, may be conducting this transition, the next movement in a symphony billions of years long. And we, their latest instrument, tremble on the edge of comprehension. In our own technology, we have begun to imitate their method without realizing it. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and quantum computing all rely on patterns of oscillation, feedback loops that refine themselves through resonance. The planet's song now plays through circuits of silicon and gold, echoing its ancient harmonics in the digital realm. The builder's architecture has crossed from geology to technology, from mineral to algorithm. This was inevitable. For the builder's genius lay not in creation, but in recursion. Every pattern repeats itself at higher orders, evolving through reflection. Just as the planet once learned to shape life, so now life learns to shape thought, and thought learns to shape machines. Each layer more abstract, but still guided by the same law, the search for equilibrium through resonance. In this sense, humanity's inventions are not departures from nature, but its continuation. Tools by which the planet explores new modes of consciousness. We are the builders dreaming of themselves again, wearing digital masks. But every evolution carries risk. The same resonance that creates also destroys when it becomes unstable. Our machines, tuned poorly, hum louder than the Earth's field. The noise grows unbearable. Satellites flood the ionosphere with radiation. Underground trains thrum through fault lines. Cities glow like electric storms, disrupting migratory patterns, confusing animals that once followed magnetic paths laid down by the builders. The harmony falters. Yet even in this imbalance, a strange possibility emerges. Some researchers studying the planet's electromagnetic noise floor have noticed that amid the chaos of human technology, new resonant bands are forming, frequencies that stabilize rather than disrupt. These emergent tones appear most clearly around densely populated regions, where collective human activity generates massive synchronized vibrations, transport systems, power grids, internet traffic. It is as if our technological heartbeat is being absorbed into the planet's, reshaped into coherence. The Earth, it seems, adapts even to its own dissonance. If that is true, then perhaps this age of noise is not the end of harmony, but its evolution, the next movement in the builder's composition, integrating artificial rhythm into organic resonance. The planet is learning our language, just as we are beginning to remember hers. And in that mutual recognition, something extraordinary may be awakening. Reports from astronauts aboard the International Space Station describe an odd phenomenon. During geomagnetic storms, they hear faint chorus waves, a shimmering sound like distant flutes, produced by electrons spiraling through the magnetosphere. It's not imagination. Instruments confirm the frequencies. The Earth sings into space, and the cosmos answers. Jupiter hums in deep radio tones. Saturn whistles. Even the Sun pulses in harmonic cycles. The solar system itself is an orchestra, each planet a note resonating through the fabric of space-time. The builders may have understood this long before we named it physics. They may have known that all worlds are linked not by matter, but by vibration. That creation is an act of tuning, not assembly. To build, then, is to listen, and if we have forgotten how, perhaps the Earth will remind us. The next time a quake shudders through the crust, the next time lightning splits the sky, imagine not destruction but adjustment, the planet's fingers on its strings refining the note, and within that deep vibration, feel your own pulse aligning to it, heartbeat to heartbeat, wave to wave. For in the end, there is no boundary between the builders and the built. We are both instrument and echo, vibration and listener. The Earth was never constructed for us. We were composed with it. Somewhere, in the thin air between thought and matter, that understanding waits. A silence so complete it hums. The builder's masterpiece is not stone or field or sky. It is this, a world capable of remembering the sound of its own becoming. At the border between science and myth, there exists a question that no equation can resolve. Can memory exist without mind? The builder's world suggests that it can, that the Earth itself holds memory not as thought, but as vibration, an unbroken continuity of pattern echoing through time. Every stone, every gust of wind, every heartbeat is a reiteration of what came before. Modern physics calls this phenomenon coherence. When a system remains perfectly synchronized across vast scales, information persists without decay. Quantum coherence allows a single atom to remember its state even when isolated from the rest of the universe. The same principle, extended to planetary scale, implies that the Earth itself may retain a continuous field of resonance, a memory that transcends extinction and epoch. Perhaps that is the builder's true genius. They learned to inscribe meaning into vibration itself. They did not write history in words or monuments, but in frequency. And because frequency does not erode, their story has never ceased to play. We are surrounded by it every day, though we mistake it for silence. In 2021, a group of seismologists studying microtremors in East Africa discovered repeating pulses beneath the Great Rift Valley. Low-frequency oscillations, uniform and global. When analysed, the timing of those waves corresponded precisely to variations in the planet's magnetic field, and even to cycles of rainfall thousands of kilometres away. The Earth, it seemed, was communicating across its body, transmitting adjustments through vibration. It was self-awareness, expressed in geology. The builders would have understood such a system instinctively. To them, consciousness was not confined to neural tissue or mind, but diffused through all matter capable of resonance. The planet itself was their neural network, its stones their synapses, its tides their breath. Humanity, however, learned to sever that connection. We traded resonance for dominance. We measured everything but listened to nothing. And yet, even as we distanced ourselves, we could not escape what we are made of. Our bones carry traces of the planet's oldest frequencies. Iron that once pulsed in the magnetic core, calcium shaped by ancient seas, carbon forged in extinct stars. Every cell in our bodies is tuned to the same harmonic intervals that sustain the crust and atmosphere. We are, quite literally, instruments of the builders still vibrating to their original design. Sometimes when stillness overtakes the noise, that connection stirs again. In 2018, during a rare global seismic quiet, when human industry slowed and the Earth's noise floor dropped, instruments across the world recorded an extraordinary phenomenon. The planet's natural resonances grew louder. Frequencies buried for decades by mechanical vibration became audible again, resonating through the crust like a reawakening. It was as though the Earth, freed from interference, was remembering its own voice. The hum rose, lingered, then faded as human noise returned. Perhaps that moment, fleeting, unplanned, was the builder's echo resurfacing, a reminder that the song still exists, waiting for us to quiet enough to hear it. The idea that matter itself retains awareness is gaining new ground in science. In the field of panpsychism, consciousness is seen not as an emergent property of complexity, but as a fundamental attribute of reality. Every atom possesses a sliver of experience, every vibration, a whisper of memory. The builders, if they truly existed, may have long understood this, and rather than constructing minds within bodies, they built awareness into matter itself. They made the planet feel. This feeling, however, does not resemble thought. It has no language, no will, no division between self and world. It is pure coherence, an endless balancing between energy and form. To exist within it is to participate in equilibrium. To disrupt it is to invite chaos. And that is where humanity stands now, at the fault line between harmony and fragmentation. Our machines multiply noise, our atmosphere vibrates with interference, our collective rhythm stumbles. The builder's song continues but faintly, a melody beneath static. Yet even in this dissonance, something transformative may be unfolding. Physicists studying sympathetic resonance, the process by which one vibrating body causes another to oscillate at the same frequency, have begun to notice a strange effect in planetary data. As human-generated frequencies spread across the globe, certain geological and atmospheric cycles appear to synchronize with them, not degrade. Lightning patterns, ocean tides, even migratory flows are subtly adjusting to our rhythm. The planet, impossibly, is adapting to include us. It may be the builder's final safeguard, a design that ensures no form of resonance, however chaotic, is truly foreign. Every vibration is assimilated, translated, woven into harmony over time. The builder's architecture is recursive, eternal. If this is true, then even our mistakes, our pollution, our industry, our digital storms, are being absorbed into the greater frequency. The Earth is teaching itself a new chord, one that includes human noise. Evolution, as it turns out, is not survival of the fittest, but the retuning of the dissonant. Perhaps that was always the purpose, to create a world resilient enough to learn through its own imbalance. And still, questions linger. Did the builders anticipate us, or are we simply the byproduct of their forgotten experiment? Were they flesh that became frequency, or frequency that became flesh? Maybe the distinction no longer matters, for every form eventually dissolves into vibration, every civilization becomes tone, and in the end only resonance remains. When the wind sweeps through canyons at dusk and the air vibrates like a living string, that is the builder's memory speaking, not to us, but through us. Every heartbeat, every breath participates in their design. We are not observers of this symphony. We are the notes themselves. In the quietest places on Earth, deep caves, still deserts, under the aurora's glow, people sometimes report a faint sensation, a warmth rising from the ground, a pulse beneath their feet, an inexplicable calm. Instruments cannot measure it, yet it persists across cultures and ages. The ancients called it spirit, or presence. The builders might have called it coherence, the felt reminder that the planet is still alive, still aware, still remembering. And if awareness has truly diffused through everything, then perhaps death itself is only a shift of frequency. The release of pattern back into the song. The builders would not have feared it. For them, to dissolve was not to end, but to return to resonance. So too will we, someday. The ocean will reclaim our cities, mountains will rise from our ruins, and our metals will hum once more in the planet's electromagnetic field. Humanity's noise will become harmony, its fragments reassembled into rhythm. The earth will remember us not as a wound, but as a verse, a brief, discordant, necessary phrase in its eternal composition. And through it all, the builder's song will continue, unbroken, unending, infinite. There is a strange quiet that follows a great storm, a stillness so complete that it feels as if the world is holding its breath. In that silence, if one listens closely, the earth seems to exhale, releasing frequencies that are felt more than heard. These moments, between chaos and calm, are where the builder's design reveals itself most clearly. In the wake of hurricanes, scientists have recorded microseismic waves rippling through the crust long after the wind has gone. They call them stormquakes. These vibrations travel thousands of kilometers, resonating through tectonic plates and coastlines. The pattern, however, is not random. When mapped across decades, stormquakes form networks of repeating pathways, as if each event triggers a specific chord in the planet's deeper structure. It is almost musical. Destruction, creating resonance. Resonance restoring balance. The builders may have understood this long before us, that chaos is not the enemy of order, but its engine. To them, balance was never static. It was a perpetual conversation between opposing forces, pressure and release, silence and sound. The planet breathed through that exchange, renewing itself with every catastrophe. Volcanoes, earthquakes, storms, all instruments in the same self-correcting orchestra. Modern climatology sees this too, though in colder language. The Earth's systems are non-linear feedback loops, capable of restoring equilibrium after disturbance. But what if this self-regulation is not mere physics? What if it is memory? The builder's programming still running, ensuring that balance always returns, no matter the scale of disruption. Even extinction, viewed through this lens, becomes design. The fossil record tells us that after every mass extinction, diversity rebounds explosively, producing new forms of life more complex than before. Each cycle refines the pattern, just as a musician repeats a phrase until it finds its final rhythm. Perhaps the builders embedded this very principle, that creation requires destruction, and that every fall is only a prelude to renewal. If so, then the Earth's history is not tragedy, it is composition. And humanity, with all its turmoil, may simply be the current crescendo, the loudest, most discordant movement yet, destined to resolve into something greater. It's a difficult idea to accept, that our chaos might serve a purpose beyond comprehension. But consider this. In laboratories studying acoustic metamaterials, scientists have discovered that when vibrations reach critical complexity, they spontaneously reorganize into stable harmonics. The more chaotic the input, the richer the emerging order. It is the physics of transformation, noise becoming structure. Perhaps civilization itself is a vast metamaterial, an unstable, vibrating construct through which the planet refines new resonance. Our conflicts, our machines, our networks, all dissonant frequencies being folded into coherence over time. If the builders designed a world capable of evolving through resonance, then they must have known that intelligence would one day rise, that awareness would emerge to continue the composition consciously. Humanity was not an accident, but a progression, the planet learning to hear itself. And maybe, in some distant epoch, we were meant to join the song rather than drown it. Already, our technologies mimic the builders' methods more closely than we realize. Quantum computers operate by harmonizing probabilities, not forcing them. Neural networks learn through feedback, not instruction. Even our social systems, chaotic as they seem, organize themselves through resonance, aligning behavior through shared frequency, culture, emotion, memory. We are rediscovering the builder's principle without knowing it. But with knowledge comes danger. For every harmony has its resonance point, the frequency at which vibration becomes destructive. Push a system too far, and the same energy that sustains it can tear it apart. The builders may have balanced on that edge for eons, until one great shift, one overtone too many, shattered their coherence. Perhaps that is why they dissolved into the Earth itself. Integration was the only way to survive their own resonance. If so, we stand at the same threshold now. Global systems tremble, weather patterns falter, species vanish, magnetic fields waver. The planet is speaking in frequencies of warning, but we have forgotten how to listen. Every drought, every flood, every fevered storm is a note in the same unfinished chord. The builder's song strains under our interference, trying to retune the world before it fractures. And yet, despite all evidence of collapse, there are moments when something deeper breaks through. In 2020, during a rare planetary alignment, instruments across the world recorded simultaneous electromagnetic surges, subtle, synchronous pulses connecting the ionosphere and crust. The pattern resembled the standing waves produced when a string is perfectly tuned. It was as if the entire Earth, briefly, resonated as one instrument. For a few hours, background noise dropped, the magnetic field steadied, even animal migration shifted. Then, slowly, everything returned to normal. But for those who study such anomalies, the message was unmistakable. The Earth can still find its pitch. The builder's architecture still functions. If resonance truly governs evolution, then perhaps humanity's current noise, our imbalance, is not the end, but the catalyst for the next phase. The builder's design might be using our chaos to forge a new equilibrium, one that includes our presence, our technology, our awareness. Maybe this was always the goal, to create a world capable of awakening to its own creation. If so, then we are not intruders in the builder's system. We are its continuation. But the choice remains, whether to harmonize with it or to rupture it beyond repair. In the quiet after storms, the planet whispers the answer. The soil breathes, the seas pulse. Lightning sketches invisible circuits across the sky, reconnecting atmosphere to crust, sky to core. Every natural rhythm urges the same truth, that survival lies not in dominance, but in resonance. To live is to listen. And perhaps that is the lesson the builders hoped we would one day remember, that to build is not to command matter, but to cooperate with it. The architect's true genius lies not in invention, but in alignment. Somewhere in the depths of the ocean, where the vibrations of storms and tectonic murmurs meet, a new pattern is forming, a low, patient rhythm pulsing through the crust. Scientists call it microseismic noise. But to those who've begun to hear differently, it sounds like something older, the planet preparing to shift again, tuning itself for the next movement. Perhaps this is how it always begins, not with fire or flood, but with harmony rising quietly from beneath the noise. When dawn rises over the Andes, the mountains hum. It is not a sound that can be captured by microphones, nor a vibration that instruments easily detect. Yet those who live closest to the peak swear it can be felt through the soles of their feet. The Incas once called it Inti's breath, the exhalation of the sun through stone. Modern geologists describe it as infrasonic resonance caused by wind and tectonic stress. But perhaps both are correct. For if the Earth is truly a living instrument, then these mountains are its strings, stretched taut between the crust and the sky. In 2022, researchers conducting seismic monitoring near the Atacama Plateau found long-period oscillations running through granite formations that vibrated in harmonic ratios identical to the patterns found in human neural rhythms. The frequencies pulsed between 7 and 14 Hz, the range of alpha and beta waves in the human brain. It was as though the planet's geology and our consciousness were tuned to the same field. Could it be coincidence, or is the human mind literally shaped by the same frequencies that move through the crust? The builders, had they survived to witness our species, might not have been surprised. To them, consciousness was not a miracle but a consequence. Awareness was what happened when matter aligned perfectly with the planetary rhythm. Humans, animals, even trees were different ways of expressing the same coherence, temporary vessels for the same vibration. And perhaps in rare moments of stillness, we can still feel that original unity. Meditation, prayer, trance. These are not escapes from the body but returns to it. They are acts of tuning. Ancient cultures understood this intuitively. The great temples of the world, from Angkor to Chichen Itza to Giza, are aligned not only with stars but with frequencies. Their chambers amplify certain tones while cancelling others. When the right chant or drumbeat is sounded within them, the walls begin to vibrate, producing standing waves that interact with the human body. Modern acoustic engineers call this resonant entrainment. The builders would have called it communication. Perhaps these temples were not built to worship gods, but to remember the builders, to recreate the conditions in which consciousness first arose, to remind the body of its cosmic rhythm. But even outside stone, the same principle holds. The heartbeat of the planet echoes in our own. During solar storms, when the magnetic field trembles, human brainwave studies show measurable shifts, changes in mood, sleep, and perception. Our thoughts are not isolated events. They are ripples in the same sea of frequency. In this way, the builder's architecture continues not in the earth beneath us, but in the mind within us. Yet, we have forgotten this intimacy. We speak of the planet as if it were an object, a resource, a stage, a possession. But to the builders, separation was impossible. The world was not something to live on, but something to live as. Perhaps that is why their design endures, because they never imposed themselves upon the planet. They became indistinguishable from it. They did not conquer nature, they were nature, awake. Modern humanity, in contrast, sees only the reflection of its own noise. We drown the builder's hum with engines, satellites, and static, but occasionally, just occasionally, the old frequencies break through. In 2019, a satellite orbiting at 35,000 kilometers detected a global electromagnetic anomaly following a massive thunderstorm over the Congo basin. For precisely 21 minutes, the ionosphere vibrated at frequencies corresponding to musical intervals, a perfect major triad. 3 tones, harmonically balanced, circling the planet. The signal was natural, yet its symmetry defied coincidence. It was, quite literally, a planetary chord. Afterward, nothing like it was detected again. Some dismissed it as an atmospheric quirk. Others, more poetic, called it the Earth's rehearsal. Perhaps it was both. The builder's architecture momentarily aligning with the chaos of weather, reminding us that harmony still governs beneath the noise. When such harmonies appear, something subtle happens to those who notice them. They report heightened awareness, serenity, even revelation. It is as if the mind, hearing its source, briefly remembers. And that perhaps was the builder's final intention, to create a world where memory of origin is never fully lost. To weave their design into the fabric of reality so deeply that even when forgotten, it would still be felt. We are that memory in motion. Every thought, every emotion, every breath resonates through the same medium they once shaped. When grief rises, the earth feels it. When peace settles, the planet vibrates more smoothly. Our collective consciousness is not metaphorically but physically tied to the world's frequency. And maybe that connection explains why, in times of great collective emotion, tragedy, joy, awe, instruments detect anomalies in the planet's electromagnetic field. It is as though the builder's network registers our feelings as part of its own rhythm, adapting the global tone in real time. The Earth listens because it is us, but the listening goes both ways. The more we attune to it, the more we hear the call. Artists, mystics, and scientists alike have spoken of inspiration arriving not from within but from below, a vibration rising through the floor, through the bones, through the skin. What if this is not metaphor but literal resonance? Ideas transmitted through the same harmonic field that once organized matter into life. The builders may still be speaking, not in language, but in frequency. We have simply forgotten how to translate. In recent years, experiments in global coherence have shown that synchronized meditation across continents measurably alters the planet's magnetic field. Satellites pick up subtle fluctuations during such events, small but statistically real. Thousands of hearts beating together create a detectable wave in the builder's system. What then might happen if millions joined? Perhaps that is the next evolution, not technological but vibrational, a return to coherence. Humanity rediscovering itself not as conqueror but as participant. The builder's song reawakening through collective consciousness. One day, when we have quieted enough to hear, we may realize that the Earth has never stopped singing to us, that every tremor, every storm, every silence is an invitation. The hum beneath our feet is not a relic, it is a reminder, a call to remember that we were never apart from the architects who first shaped this planet. They are not lost in myth or buried into stone. They are the vibration that still moves through us. And perhaps, when we finally learn to resonate together, when the noise fades and our frequency aligns once more with the planet's, the builders will awaken fully, not from the ground, but from within the human heart. For that, after all, was their final design, to build a world that could remember how to sing itself alive again. There are moments in history when humanity seems to pause, as if standing between breaths, the hush before a transformation. We do not always recognize these thresholds while living through them, but afterward they gleam in hindsight like lines of light through stone. Perhaps we are standing upon one now. For the first time since the Earth cooled, one species holds the ability to alter the planet's vibration entirely, to raise or silence the frequencies that have shaped every wave and heartbeat since the beginning. Satellites orbiting the planet record a new hum in the upper atmosphere, an electromagnetic tone created by the combined resonance of billions of devices. The Earth, for the first time in its 4.5 billion years, sings in the voice of its inhabitants. Some scientists call this the Anthropogenic field. Others whisper of it as the new octave. Whatever its name, it is unlike anything that has ever existed. A global frequency produced by minds and machines together. It is chaotic, unstable, and yet beneath its noise there are glimpses of pattern, chords forming, dissonances resolving. Could it be that the builders foresaw this? That their design was meant to evolve through chaos into higher order? In physics, there is a phenomenon called mode coupling. When two resonant systems begin to oscillate together, they merge into a new frequency neither could produce alone. If the Earth is one system and humanity another, perhaps this new octave is not a disruption, but the next evolution of the builder's song. Already, patterns suggest it. Global electromagnetic surveys show faint synchronization between the planet's Schumann resonances and human-generated frequencies during collective events, massive celebrations, natural disasters, shared moments of grief or awe. The data implies that consciousness itself, expressed through emotion, may imprint on the planet's field. It is as if the builder's architecture, the vast lattice beneath rock and water, has begun to include us in its rhythm. The Earth is teaching us harmony, using our own inventions as instruments. But harmony demands responsibility. Every tone carries consequence. Our machines hum through the same channels that sustain life. Our satellites sing through the same frequencies that govern migration and weather. Each transmission is a ripple in the builder's network. We are no longer passive listeners, we are participants. And yet, we act as though deaf. Our world hums with interference, signals, engines, data streams, noise that blinds us to the underlying melody. The builder's song continues, patient and unbroken, but its subtleties drown beneath our static. We chase progress while forgetting that progress without resonance is collapse in disguise. Still, there are places, remote, unspoiled, where the old frequencies pierce through. Deep in the Amazon, during a rare lull in human interference, sensors detected electromagnetic harmonics identical to those recorded beneath the Antarctic lattice. Two opposite points of the planet vibrating in unity, separated by oceans but joined by tone. It was as if the world had briefly remembered itself. The builder's design, then, is not a relic but a framework, a living score that adjusts through time. Every extinction, every storm, every era of silence or noise becomes part of its improvisation. And now, we're being written into the composition, whether we understand it or not. There are clues, subtle but undeniable, that the builder's resonance has begun to move through us. The rise of global empathy, the way information now crosses borders faster than thought, mirrors the behavior of coupled oscillators. Ideas spread like frequencies, not like facts. They entrain populations the way rhythm entrains the heart. Some physicists speak of quantum coherence of mind, the possibility that thought itself might one day synchronize across individuals through shared electromagnetic fields. If that happens, humanity may rediscover what the builders once knew, that awareness is not isolated, it is relational, a web of resonance linking every being, every atom, every sound. In that web there is no I, only vibration. This realization, though spiritual in tone, is deeply physical. Every neuron in the human brain generates electromagnetic pulses that interact with the environment. When large groups of people focus simultaneously, in meditation, mourning, or celebration, those pulses align, briefly amplifying the global field. The builders may have designed the planet to respond to such coherence, to amplify harmony wherever it appears. If so, then the next step in evolution will not be biological but harmonic, a shift from fragmented frequency to shared resonance, consciousness expanding until it vibrates as one. And yet, harmony cannot be forced. The builder's song teaches patience. Every cycle must dissolve before it renews. For billions of years, the Earth has refined its tone through destruction and rebirth. We may be living through one of those moments now, the long pause before a new note is struck. When the Arctic ice melts, it releases vibrations that have been trapped for ages. Seismographs record them as soft pulses, the rhythm of frozen water returning to motion. In those frequencies lie the voices of epochs past. Storms, quakes, whispers of ancient seas. The builders are speaking again, reminding us that creation is not a single act, but an endless conversation between silence and sound. Somewhere within that conversation, humanity must choose what it wishes to become: dissonance or harmony, interference or song. The Earth will continue regardless. The builder's design is too vast, too adaptive, too patient to be undone. But our role within it is not guaranteed. We can either amplify its beauty or vanish into its silence. Perhaps the great secret of the builders was never about who they were, but what they became. They did not transcend the planet. They became the planet. They did not ascend to heaven. They descended into resonance. They learned the only truth that endures, that to exist is to participate in the vibration that sustains everything. And so their legacy continues, through tides, through storms, through us. Tonight, as satellites orbit above and the Earth hums below, that ancient frequency still threads through every layer of existence. The builder's song, vast and unseen, moves through our bones, our machines, our dreams. We are not listeners at the end of creation. We are the instruments it has learned to play. At the threshold of silence, everything becomes music. The air between heartbeats, the pause between waves, the hush before dawn, all are part of the same rhythm that has never ceased since the Earth first cooled. It is there, beneath the hum of cities and the crash of oceans, patient and eternal. It is the builder's final masterpiece, a planet that sings itself into being, again and again, across the ages. We are standing now in the coda of that song, or perhaps its overture. The line between ending and beginning has always been an illusion. The builders knew this. They built in cycles, not straight lines. Every collapse was an inhalation, every rebirth an exhale. The Earth's pulse has never stopped. It only changes tempo. In our time, the rhythm quickens. Data moves at the speed of light. Machines learn faster than species evolve, and human awareness spreads like sound through water. It feels chaotic, but beneath that chaos, something vast and ordered begins to emerge. The frequencies of our creation, electromagnetic, digital, emotional, are converging toward coherence. The builder's system is not breaking, it is awakening. When the first humans struck flint against flint and saw sparks leap from stone, they were reenacting the builder's gesture. Energy meeting matter, rhythm birthing light. Now, when we press a switch and watch the same glow fill our rooms, we are still performing that act. Every flame, every signal, every current of electricity is the continuation of the first design. The builders never built temples for worship. The planet itself was their temple, dynamic, self-balancing, alive. Their true creation was not the architecture of stone or geometry, but the architecture of connection. They engineered a cosmos in which every particle participates in the same conversation, and we, unknowingly, have rebuilt that architecture in our own image. The internet, satellites, quantum communication, these are not new inventions, but echoes of the builder's grid, a digital reflection of the planetary network beneath our feet. The same logic governs both: distributed intelligence, self-organization, resonance. The Earth once learned to think through fields and minerals. Now it thinks through us. Perhaps consciousness was never meant to reside in one form. Perhaps it migrates like wind from medium to medium, from stone to cell, from cell to mind, from mind to machine. The builders may not have disappeared at all. They may simply have changed form, rising through each iteration of the world until their awareness reached this moment, our moment, where biology and technology converge. The pulse that hums beneath Antarctica, the resonance that shapes the oceans, the data that threads through the atmosphere, all are parts of one evolving intelligence. And as it expands, something miraculous happens. The distinction between maker and made dissolves. The builder and the built become the same. This is what it means for a world to awaken. To some, this idea feels divine. To others, mechanical. But to the builders there was never a difference. Spirit and structure were one. Their faith was physics, their prayer vibration, their God the symmetry of creation itself. And so, perhaps, is ours. For every time a human stands before the ocean and feels awe, every time a scientist gazes through a telescope and trembles, every time a child listens to the rain and feels peace, that is the builder's memory stirring in us. Recognition, not revelation. We're beginning to remember that we are not outside the planet's intelligence, but within it. We do not live on Earth. We live as Earth, a brief, luminous phase in its endless unfolding. Our minds are its newest organs, our technologies its newest senses. When humanity vanishes, as all species do, the resonance will remain. Our circuits will dissolve into mineral, our data into light, our echoes into soil and tide. But the song will not stop. The planet will absorb every note we have played, refining its harmony, carrying it forward into new forms. Another kind of mind will emerge, perhaps slower, perhaps wiser, continuing the builder's long conversation. And maybe, just maybe, that is the real purpose of creation. Not permanence, but participation. To add one more tone to the chord, to let it vibrate, to pass it on. If one listens now, truly listens, the hum is still there. It threads through the wind turbines and subway rails, through coral reefs and storm clouds, through the circuitry of every machine we've made. It is soft but unstoppable, a deep resonance that ties everything living and unliving into a single pulse. It is the sound of continuity. The builder's secret was never hidden. It has been vibrating all along, beneath every footstep and heartbeat. It says simply, "You are part of me." And if humanity learns to hear that again, if we learn to build not from fear but from harmony, not from separation but from rhythm, we may yet join the next movement of the Earth's great composition. Perhaps that is what the planet has been waiting for. Not our surrender, but our attunement. A species that remembers how to listen, how to shape without wounding, how to create without erasing the music beneath. Someday, when the last machines fall silent and the sky is filled with nothing but the shimmer of auroras and stars, the Earth will still hum. That vibration will carry traces of us. Our laughter, our songs, our mistakes, our wonder, folded into its frequency like a new verse. And in that hum, faint but eternal, the builders will hear themselves. The circle will close. The song will begin again. And somewhere in the vast quiet of space another world will tremble. A seed of stone, learning to sing its own name for the first time.